Hello, I'm Nobby Clark. Welcome to my workshop. As you would have seen from the introductory photographs there, I now have a pair of resettable dials for my Myford lathe. You see these actually came from Myford, genuine parts, and I can use these to replace the dials on the cross slide and the compound slide. The dial that came with the Myford lathe when I bought it was this type, which I guess if you're familiar with Myford lathes, this is the type that was originally supplied. And I did find this was slightly more awkward to use compared to my Chinese mini lathe, which comes automatically with resettable dials. That when you're using this, you've got to remember that the numbered position of the dial to then make various depth cuts on the cross slide. What I did initially, after I'd had the machine for, well, I guess a year or more, I decided to have a go at making a resettable dial myself. I know lots of people have done this. So I watched various YouTube videos on the ways people had actually manufactured theirs. So what I like to do is bring the camera a little bit closer to show you the dial that I made, and show you sort of fitting the replacement dial to it. Bear with me just a moment. I have cheated a little bit, and I have already fitted the dial to the compound slide. This proved to be a little more difficult than I expected, really. But what I wanted to do was to have a rehearsal first before I made this video. And what I found was that the dial here was on quite tightly, and I had some difficulty removing it. And in the end, the easiest way was to take the compound slide off, grip the very end of the lead screw, and then I was able to remove this dial. So this one is already fitted, works fine, and of course you can make any adjustments now to the resettable dial itself, which is obviously going to be very, very useful. Now, on the cross slide, as I mentioned, I made my own resettable dial for this a few years back. If I take the handle off, it's actually loose anyway, I've already loosened that. I did have to, when I was fitting this one, I had to find a very, very slim spanner that would actually fit the flats on here. I made the flats on here exactly the same as the flats on here, and that they will be identical to these as well. So the way I made my one is it's two rings, if you like, an outer ring which has all the calibrations on it, and an inner ring which screws onto the thread here. Very long thread. So obviously that has to be a nice close fit into here. So I machined this first, cut the flats on it, put the screw thread into here, and that just screws under here. There's a washer in between, just to give you the correct spacing, I guess. So that screws on. Now to make this outer ring grip, what I did was drilled a hole through here to use a little grub screw which presses onto a ball bearing, which then bears against the outer part of this part. Now, before I took this off, I couldn't really remember exactly how I'd made this. I couldn't remember whether it was a ball bearing or whether I'd put a brass insert in here. I wasn't absolutely sure, but I soon found out because the ball bearing fell out and fell onto the floor. I thought, well, I'll never ever see that again. But in fact, I had a scrabble around the floor with a torch, and I actually found the ball bearing. I'm probably going to lose this again, but there's the little ball bearing that fell out. So I'll try and hold on to that and try not to lose it again. Not necessarily that this is ever going to be used again. I think this will just go in a drawer as a memento of actually making it in the first place. I guess the real difficult task was to inscribe all of the lines in here. There are 100 lines round here, and I divided them the same way as I understood that Myford did on theirs, by having a long line for each 10 position and a slightly shorter line for every 5 position, and an even shorter line for each individual 1,000th increment. The way I did this was by holding this in the lathe chuck and then using a sharp tool in the Toolpost to scribe the lines across here. I made a template which was mounted onto cardboard and went behind the lathe chuck, and I set up a pointer on one side so that as I moved the chuck round to each position, the pointer came to each position on the template at the back here, and that enabled me then to scribe the lines. I mean, this is something that needed to be done very accurately, and it did take a heck of a long time to scribe all of these lines, but it had to be done as accurately as I could possibly do it. And then I used a number punch to punch each 10 position increment. The Myford one, they are actually marked. You see 80, 70, 60, 50 and so forth, but I only mark mine as 1, 2, 3, 4 and so forth, just to make it a little bit easier. But having made this, it improved the use of the lathe so much, and I had got the lines on it very accurate indeed, because when I'm machining material where I'm getting sort of very close to the exact diameter, making small incremental adjustments here, it's giving me very accurate cuts on the lathe indeed. So I was very pleased at how this worked out, although I guess perhaps there are some slight difficulties in using it. It's not perhaps the ideal way of making it really, but I mean, I was quite pleased with the results. But I am so pleased to have the genuine part now. So basically, obviously remove all my parts, take that off, and I just remove the little washer for a moment. We just give that a bit of a wipe round. I have already cleaned this a bit already, and we put some oil on here as well. A bit of oil onto there. Wash it back on again, and now we can screw that part on. And we can sort of adjust that. It may need a bit of adjusting to get it in the right position. Let's try this and see how that's going to work. Put that on, and then we can use my little thin spanner to pop that on. Oh, that seems okay. There is a little bit of a wobble there, but it's still, going to give me the line up that I need here, and of course then I can make any adjustments then to the ring on here. So that's going to work really nicely, and it's going to make life as easy it really was with this one, and considerably easier than it was with this. I mean, obviously all the parts that I've ever removed from the lathe, I keep all of these in a box, because if the lathe ever came to someone else's hands at any time in the future, if they wanted to return it to the original dials, I can't imagine they'd ever want to do that. They can do if they want to. I'm going to move that ball bearing because it's almost certain I'm going to lose that. And I'll move my little wooden plate along there. So everything is now in order. I'm very, very pleased to have these lovely dials now. And they were, Myford being what they were delivered very, very quickly as well. One other little modification I did carry out to the Myford, that you have a carriage saddle lock, which is here. I don't know if you can see that okay. Let's move that back a bit so you get a slightly better view. Which originally was just the head of a bolt, and it meant to adjust it you had to use a spanner every time to lock the carriage, which was okay, but it was just taking more time, I guess, than was really needed. So I bought one of these locking handles, which you can lift up and reposition to wherever you want it. Problem is that this being an imperial lathe, obviously that it's an imperial thread, and I couldn't find one of these with the same thread as the locking nut sort of down below the back here. So I managed to get hold of a bolt, a long bolt that I could use in this position, and then re-threaded the top for the metric thread of this. It just has sort of washers below here, and then that locks the carriage so easily. It's could be locked in seconds. It makes it so much faster to do. Small thing, but a great improvement to using the lathe, because when you're facing off material, obviously you really want to sort of lock the carriage so that can't be pushed back while you're doing the facing procedure. So simple thing, but very, very worthwhile to do. While we're talking about the Myford lathe, something I've been over the last few days experimenting with. I've seen quite a lot of videos on YouTube where people are using the Toolpost to hold the drill chuck rather than using the tailstock. Apparently there are some sort of advantages to doing this. Obviously, putting a drill chuck on the Toolpost is more difficult to initially set up, but it does give you a lot of very, very easy fine movement to the drill, and of sort of a greater movement, much easier to remove the drill back very, very quickly as well. There are apparently, for some designs of Toolpost, there are already tool holders designed particularly for this purpose. And there's a company that called Edge Engineering that make lots of accessories for lathes and milling machines that make a Toolpost drill adapter, but as far as I know, they don't make one for this type of Toolpost. This is a Dixon type, a Myford Dixon Toolpost, which I believe is sort of mostly used on British-made lathes. I mean, even if Edge Engineering did make one for this, I'm pretty certain it would be something that I couldn't afford to buy anyway. So my experiments have been involving this. That's the Dixon style tool holder, and I already had a straight shank arbor for a drill chuck. The idea being that when I'm using the milling machine, rather than keep changing out the collet to put a drill chuck in with a Morse taper on it, I could just insert the drill chuck with the straight shank arbor into the collet chuck rather. So I thought, well, I could probably use this with a chuck. This is quite an old, it's a Chinese made chuck. It's a Jacob style of chuck, and then use that on the Toolpost. I've not used it yet to drill with, but obviously there's got to be a procedure for setting the drill chuck up to be absolutely in line with the chuck itself. The method that people seem to adopt is to have a piece of ground material in the lathe chuck, and then that's inserted into the drill chuck. Oops. And then that can be aligned in this plane and by raising the tool holder up and down. So I mean, I think this will probably work. I'm going to play around with it a bit more and see whether I can make this work. But it would be sort of quite a quick thing to attach. You know, just take your lathe tools out and then just drop this into position. Could be done sort of very, very quickly. Could be an interesting accessory. Perhaps, you know, if you have any thoughts on that, if you want to give me your comments, if you think it's a good idea or not. But there we are. Anyway, thank you for joining me again in the workshop today. Thank you again to all the subscribers to the channel and all the nice comments and so forth. And no doubt I'll have another video for you very soon. Thank you. Bye for now. Hello again, just a quick addition to the video. I mentioned when I made the resettable dial of my own that I had to engrave all the 100 divisions on the dial itself, and the way I did this by mounting the dial into the lathe chuck and then using a scribing tool in the Toolpost and putting a template behind the lathe chuck. This is the template. I had a search around and managed to find it. So this was basically squeezed behind the lathe chuck here, and then I set up a pointer at the side so that I could move this around the 100 positions all the way around here. To get sort of accurately and evenly spaced divisions on the dial itself. Interestingly, I actually wrote the details on here July 2020, so that's when I actually made the dial itself. So we're sort of looking at nearly 3 years ago. So we are. Just thought that might be a bit of interesting extra information for you. There's a website on the internet that you can go to find these templates, and you can enter in the diameter you want this to be and the number of divisions you require, and also the thickness of the lines as well. And this is it's a free download, but you can obviously make a small contribution to the website, to help maintain it. So just a bit of extra information for you, and I'm really going to go now. Bye for now.